Welcome to Today in Prophecy, daily news in 15 minutes or less. It's news from a perspective of the Bible. Australia votes to recognize Palestine. Also in the news, former Israeli Minister Shaked denied entry into Australia. And the Biden-Harris administration sanctions Israelis. Matt Gaetz withdraws from the AG nomination. And let's roll. ICC, International Criminal Court, issues arrest warrants against Netanyahu, an ex-defense minister, and a Hamas leader. What's going to become of this? I think of this, the noose is tightening around Jerusalem. Zechariah chapter 12 does tell us, where God says, verse 2 of chapter 12, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem, and it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it." Listen, this is about an attack on the nation of Israel, again, against Netanyahu himself, the prime minister of Israel, saying we've issued an arrest warrant. It appears that Trump is going to stop the funding of the International Criminal Court. I mean, listen, this money comes from the U.S. to support these organizations. And you look at the UN itself, and what do you have? The president of the UN says, hey, let's de-Judaize Jerusalem. The noose is tightening. The enemy, the evil one, he is out to get Jerusalem and the Jews. We talked about that before. Not going to get into that why on this program. But again, as we look at this, we know there's a spiritual battle, and the target is Jerusalem. It's the nation of Israel, and it is the Jewish people. Moving on from there, next article, the UN resolution on Palestinian sovereignty, Australia's vote, and what it means. Listen to this. Australia has backed a UN resolution to recognize the permanent sovereignty of the Palestinian people for the first time in 2 decades. And key labor ministers have said the vote was an important step towards a two-state solution, adding the best way to move forward was with like-minded countries. Continuing from here, it says, here's what you need to know about the UN vote. The UN committee vote found Australia voting with 158 other countries, including UK, New Zealand, France, Germany, Japan, who voted on a resolution to recognize permanent sovereignty of the Palestinian people in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and of the Arab population in the occupied Syrian Golan over their natural resources. You look at this, you go, this is what Australia has just done. If you've ever been to Israel, you look at the Golan Heights. Listen, this is what the UN says. They say that Judea and Samaria are occupied territories. No, they are not. It's Judea and Samaria. They say that Gaza is an occupied territory. Gaza? No, the Jews withdrew from there back in 2005, and guess what happened? They even dug up the bodies of their Jewish relatives and friends that were buried there because they knew that the graves would be desecrated. And they took the dead Jews out of the area of Gaza, and they say that the Golan Heights is occupied territory. Listen, this is lies. Australia has gone along with this. Folks, this is not a good sign. And what else do we have coming out of Australia? Pretty unbelievable. Ex-Minister Shaked denied visa to Australia, reportedly since she might incite discord. Again, I look at Australia and think, what in the world is going on with Australia? We have a lot of friends in Australia. A lot of you folks watching this right now, you live in Australia. You look at this and you're going, what in the world's going on? I do not think this is going to go well for Australia. Genesis chapter 12, the Bible says, I will bless those who bless thee. I will curse those who curse thee. It appears to me that Australia has just cursed Israel. Anti-Semitism is growing in Australia. However, I know a lot of you, pretty much all of you who are watching this, you support the nation of Israel, and there's pushback against these insane things that are happening. But again, saying, hey, you can't even enter Israel. You're a former minister with Israel. You're not able to enter into Australia. Unbelievable. Well, moving on from here, check this out. out of Israel National News, Arutz Shiva, Turkey bombs Syria, cuts off water for more than 1 million people. Turkey has attacked drought-stricken northeastern Syria, cutting off its electricity and water for more than 1 million people. All right, I want you to let that sink in. Why did you not hear about that? Why was that not international news? Cutting off water and electricity for more than 1 million people. Imagine if something like that had happened with Israel, although Israel is accused of doing things on a much smaller scale in Gaza, falsely accused, as they've tried to supply food, they've tried to supply everything they can down into Gaza, but nevertheless, you see Hamas taking all of those supplies, stealing them from the people so that they can't get them. Nevertheless, why is it not international news? Turkey just cut off the water and electricity for 1 million people, Muslims, by the way. Why is that not news? Why is there not outcry from all over the Western media? Because it's not Jews, because Turkey did it. You see Bashar al-Assad. He does these things. He kills Muslims in Syria. That doesn't make any news. And then we have the lies that come out of Gaza that are against the nation of Israel. Ought to be a concern of anybody who's paying any attention. Again, I can't help but think of Zechariah chapter 12, where Jerusalem will become a stumbling stone for the entire world. And again, going back to the thoughts on what's going on with Australia, God says, listen, all who are going to go this direction, who are going to force their will upon the people of Israel, he says, surely they will be cut into pieces. So I'm looking at what's going on right now, all these attacks against Israel. The Biden-Harris administration going against Israel, now they're on their way out. But man, you start looking at all of the different dynamics going on in the world, unbelievable. Check this out, World Israel News, Jewish leader declares worst anti-Semitism emergency in Europe since Kristallnacht. Now, we've been talking quite a bit about this, what's going on with the anti-Semitism, looking at the history of Kristallnacht and the dynamic of Nazi Germany, and we see where we are now. Listen, it is unbelievable. In fact, I have a full report that's coming out on these things that are going on over in Europe and the West and what is going on with the nation of Israel as God is calling his people back from the north, the south, the east, and the west, just as Isaiah chapter 43 prophesied, just as Isaiah chapter 11 prophesied, just as Jeremiah chapter 31 prophesies. God is calling his people back home, but it is through the pain that they are experiencing that is going on throughout the world. In fact, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, God says, where you are scattered, you will become a byword in those lands, but I will bring you back into the land. We have that promise from Ezekiel chapter 36 and the other passages that I already quoted. All right, as we look at more Israel news, look at this. The Jerusalem Post, Italy admits rockets that hit UN forces were from Hezbollah, not Israel. Gee, what a coincidence. Last week, Italy had said an unexploded artillery shell hit the base of UNIFIL, putting the blame on the IDF. Oh, that was so a week ago. They said, well, it's the IDF that hit that UNIFIL base. Now they're saying, well, it wasn't actually the IDF. It was actually Hezbollah that did that. I'm looking at this going, folks, this is really interesting. Everything is zeroing in on the nation of Israel. And here's more. Look at this. Lame duck Biden-Harris administration sanctions Israelis, sends $230 million to Palestinians. The lame duck Biden-Harris administration is slapping new sanctions on Israelis while sending nearly $250 million in additional funding to the Palestinians, adding insult to injury in the closing weeks of its failed policy. Why on earth would you do something like that? Look at this and go, man, this is evil. But again, the world is turning against the nation of Israel. Again, this administration is on its way out. Trump administration is on its way in. The dynamic with the relationship with Israel is certainly about ready to change. But the Biden administration appears to be doing everything it can to it's just like burn everything down as you are a scorched earth policy as they are leaving their positions. Unbelievable. And thinking of that, here's some news also coming out of Russia. Russian President Putin is open to discussing a ceasefire with Ukraine if negotiations are led by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. I don't think that's much of a surprise for us as we look at that and think, well, certainly they can't trust Putin. It looks like with their scorched earth policy that the Biden-Harris administration have, they want to start World War III. I mean, you just you look at all of the different dynamics going on with Ukraine and with Russia. And we have Anthony Blinken and the Biden administration saying, let's put all the money that we possibly can in Ukraine, give them all the weapons and ammo that they need to throw everything possible at Putin in order to get him to start to retaliate so we can advance into World War III. It appears to me that this current administration, again, it's a scorched earth policy. Let's do everything we can. Let's destroy Israel. You have Australia now going this direction. Let's destroy, let's start World War III with Ukraine and Putin. Hey, maybe China can get involved in this mess. Unbelievable, but that is the direction that everything seems to be going. And then we have one more article here. Check out last one. What do we have? Matt Gaetz withdraws from Attorney General consideration with House Ethics report hanging over his head. He did this earlier today. As we look at all of these different dynamics going on in the news, folks, we live in interesting times, don't we? But as we remember, especially with the attention, as we began, Zechariah chapter 12, verses 2 and 3, we begin there and we start looking at all the things going on. Is look up, lift up your head because your redemption draws near. And I'm looking at you guys over in Australia that watch our program, that send me emails and notes. Listen, we got to pray for Australia. You guys got to have that whole thing turned around. Unbelievable. But listen, Jesus is coming. All of these things are a reminder again to look up and lift up our head because our redemption draws near. God bless you guys.